your husband, a lawyer who earns $30,000 a month.
I was beyond surprised and dismayed when my sister suddenly appeared in front of me and declared her plunder with a victorious look on her face.
What a stupid face. I wish Tyler could see it.
I must have looked miserable in the eyes of my sister, who was laughing so hard that she called my husband by his name in a familiar way.
You're such a sad person.
She looked down on me with satisfaction. You're the one who's miserable. She didn't know I was making raspberry noises in my heart, and her deafening laughter echoed around the room. I am Grace, 32 years old. I have a younger sister, Scarlett, 2 years younger than me. But we have not been close since childhood. We have only had minimal contact over the past few years, and she did not know my address or occupation in detail. What do you do for a living, Grace? I was once asked, but I told her only that I work at a lawyer's office because it would be troublesome to tell Scarlett. Later, I married my colleague Tyler, whom I had been dating for 3 years. Since we were both busy with work, we decided not to have a wedding ceremony, but only to take commemorative photos. Although I had already had a meeting with both families, I had not been able to report the news to Scarlett. Although I did not feel comfortable, I reported the marriage to my sister, just in case she was a family member. Scarlett didn't offer any congratulations, but instead said, "Introduce me to your husband, too." She is very interested.
I want to see Grace for the first time in a while, so I'll go visit you.
As I did my best to reject her insistence, my mind replayed the many times I had been pushed around by her in the past. She wanted the stuffed rabbit that I had cherished as a child and the clothes my parents had just bought me for my birthday. When I refused, she would cry loudly and beg my parents for them. Each time they would comfort her crying sister and say, "Grace is her big sister. You should give it to Scarlett. You have to be nice to your sister." My parents would say these things to me as if under a spell, so I had no choice but to be patient. When I started school, my sister's target was my relationships, and she talked bad about me to my friends had my boyfriend taken away before I knew what was happening. I don't want to be pushed around by my sister anymore like I used to be. I kept my distance from my sister because I didn't want to have anything to do with her, who has always forcefully taken things that were important to me. However, 2 months after I got married, Scarlett suddenly came to my house on a holiday. I was relieved that she would not come if I did not give her my address, but my sister had found out from my mother. When I opened the front door, Scarlett entered the house without even saying hello. When I introduced her my husband, she said in a sweet voice, even though they had never met before, "It is nice to meet you, Tyler." She called him by his first name. After that, she didn't seem to care that I was there, and while talking happily, my sister touched his arm. Not only that, her skinship became more and more extreme as she pulled her face close to my husband's and put her hands on his thighs. "This is your first meeting with Tyler, isn't it? Don't be so familiar with him." I tried to suppress my irritation as I warned her, but my words became more and more abusive. "She's Grace's sister. There's no need to be so angry."
Look, Tyler says so don't be jealous.
Seeing my sister giggling, I could not remain calm. So I suggested that the 3 of us go out to dinner to send Scarlett home early. After we finish eating, I'll drop you at the station so you can go home.
What? I brought my pajamas with the intention of staying the night.
My husband laughed at my sister's disgruntled words, but I couldn't help but feel annoyed at her insensitive brazenness. I blocked Scarlett's attempt to sit in the passenger seat as a matter of course in the car on the way to the restaurant, made her sit in the back seat, and we left. When we arrived at the restaurant, my sister, sitting across from my husband, ordered the same thing he did and looked at him with such an upward glance that it was embarrassing to watch. I was so afraid to leave my husband alone with my sister that I couldn't go to the restroom even if I wanted to. And I couldn't even taste the food that I had ordered. After the meal was over, my sister bought me a drink, as she should have. After paying the bill and leaving the restaurant, I looked everywhere in the parking lot, but could not find my husband's car. I had a bad feeling and rushed to call my husband. He sounded impatient and made up a bunch of excuses.
Sorry, I told her to wait until Grace came, but Scarlett kept asking me to take her to the station, so I couldn't refuse.
This is my sister, who is very observant. She must have immediately recognized his indecisive nature, because if she forcefully asked him to do something, he would not be able to refuse. I went home alone, frustrated not only with my sister, but also with my husband, who was always at Scarlett's beck and call. From that day on, my sister began to come over to our house frequently, giving some reason or other. No matter how many times I refused, it had no effect on Scarlett, so I tried to get my husband to warn her. But my good-natured husband was eventually unable to say anything, and half a year has passed. That day I came home earlier than usual and found my sister waiting in front of the house. She was deliberately rubbing her hands together as if she was cold, so I had no choice but to let her in and offer her a hot cup of coffee.
I came to talk to you today.
After taking a breath, Scarlett suddenly became reformed.
I'm dating Tyler. I'm sorry I stole your husband, a lawyer who earns $30,000 a month.
With a victorious look on her face, my mind went blank at such a declaration of plunder by my younger sister.
Ahaha, what a face you have. I wish I could show your dumb face to Tyler.
I, who didn't say anything back and remained silent, must have looked to my sister like a miserable older sister who had been abandoned by her husband. You don't understand anything, do you? She probably never dreamed that I was feeling sorry for her in my heart. Scarlett looked at me, mocked me, said, "Hurry up and get a divorce," and left. Immediately afterward, I called my husband and told him about my sister's visit and her declaration of looting, and he said, "I don't know what she's talking about." He even sighed and pretended to be stunned as hard as he could, but I didn't miss the way his voice was rising. "I want to hear. What is the truth?" When I questioned him, my husband apologized repeatedly and finally admitted his relationship with my sister.
It was not Grace's fault. It's all my fault. I'm sorry.
I could not afford to forgive my husband, who said this in an apologetic, tearful voice. After hanging up the phone, I fell into bed and cried aloud for the first time in a long time, not wanting to accept the reality that I had been confronted with. My husband did not come home that night. He must have gone to my sister's place. I called him several times, but he did not answer. When I arrived at work in the morning without being able to sleep, my boss, surprised by my husband's sudden resignation, asked me about it. I was puzzled, but I could only feign calmness and apologize. I immediately asked permission from my boss and went out into the hallway to call my husband, but he had blocked my calls. He was working hard at his job. I remember him gazing lovingly at me in my wedding dress, and I fight back the tears that threatened to well up. I felt painfully that my husband's feelings had left me. For a while after that, I couldn't do anything and suddenly found myself wondering if he was eating properly and if he was going to do from now, and I fell into a state of depression. Still, I cannot let go of the work I have been entrusted with in the middle. No matter how much I goof up, I have to be responsible for what I have to do and do my best. I was shocked and depressed for a few days, but as I went about my daily tasks, my sad feelings gradually turned to anger at my selfish sister and irresponsible husband. No matter how long I waited, I never heard from him, so I decided to call my sister.
What's up? I'm busy right now.
I suppressed the anger that threatened to overflow into my sister's grumpy voice and responded calmly. Tyler has blocked my calls, so I have no choice but to call Scarlett, and the three of us should meet and talk.
Huh? Why don't you just tell me now instead of going to all the trouble of meeting with? It's not that simple. It's a marital problem, okay?
When I said that, my sister clicked her tongue in a small way.
Tyler says he never wants to see you again. Don't make him suffer anymore.
It sounds as if I'm the perpetrator.
It's not right because you aren't attractive. Tyler says he wants to break up with that ugly woman, so get the hell out of here and get a divorce.
I was angry at what my sister said to me, even though I was planning to get a divorce too. Even if Tyler doesn't come back, we're still married on our family register. What you two are doing is a fine form of cheating, okay?
I know that. That's why I'm telling you to divorce him as soon as possible.
I don't want to. I can't do that without talking with him. I said so, and she said in an impatient voice, I'm pregnant. I need him to take full responsibility. She appealed to me with all her might. I was upset to hear that it was already 5 months, but I felt my feelings for my husband grow even colder. I'm going to file a claim for alimony against you both, so be prepared.
Huh? You're an idiot to do that to Tyler, the lawyer. I will never pay you.
With this dismissive remark, my sister unilaterally hung up the phone. I won't keep quiet if she makes fun of me this much. Unable to forgive her for being so selfish and her husband for being so manipulative, I decided to file for a divorce settlement. I knew I would get into trouble for alimony anyway, so I immediately went to the family court to file a petition for divorce mediation, and after that, I hired a detective agency to gather research on the affair. 2 weeks later, I received a number of pieces of evidence gathered by the detective, 2 of them going to a hotel while holding hands. The husband entering my sister's apartment. Among them, her blog, in which she writes about her life with him as it is, makes me feel ashamed to look at it. A short time after the petition was filed, we received the papers from the family court, and the first mediation session was scheduled to take place in 2 weeks. This should finally settle things. With this thought, I felt refreshed for the first time in a long time, and finally the day of the mediation arrived. About 30 minutes before the start of the mediation, 2 of them holding hands appeared, so I called out to them, pretending to be a coincidence. It's been a long time. How have you been?
Yes, but I'm having a bad morning sickness.
My sister was scurrying around looking for something, and my husband was not making eye contact with me.
Oh, your lawyer hasn't shown up yet?
You too. I wonder if Tyler will be in charge.
Of course. He's a lawyer. He can at least defend ourselves without paying a lot of money, right?
What?
My husband sounded pathetic as he slurred his words, but Scarlett paid no attention to such things, looking at her watch and looking around repeatedly. She was obviously waiting for my lawyer. To my sister, I offered my business card. If it bothers you so much, I'll introduce you. I'm the lawyer over here. My sister stared at the business card with her mouth hanging open in disbelief.
What do you mean you are a lawyer? Aren't you a clerk?
I never said anything like that. The clerk is you, Tyler. My sister was filling in my husband, who was cringing as he looked down.
I'm sure she's lying, right? You are a lawyer, aren't you?
No. He failed the bar exam. That's why he worked as a clerk while he studied.
I'm sorry. I was embarrassed to tell Scarlett I am a clerk, so.
What is it? You deceived me. You told me you are a liar making $30,000 a month.
I didn't mean to lie. I was just trying to look good.
Disgusted by my husband's repeated poor excuses, I said to him as if to throw up, "You two are so alike, good partners," and walked into the family court beside my sister, who was shouting abuse at him. The mediation is going in my favor because of the evidence of numerous affairs that I have hired a detective to find. Divorce mediation is held in a separate room to avoid face-to-face contact with the other party. When I was in the waiting room, I heard my sister's voice from the mediation room. "You should have defended ourselves properly. You're useless." My husband's defense must have been that bad. I couldn't help but laugh as I could understand the situation just from her voice. 3 months passed, and the divorce was finalized at the third mediation session. The evidence I submitted was decisive, and my husband and sister agreed to pay the $30,000 alimony I had demanded. My sister, who had been lied to by my husband that he was a lawyer, insisted that she was the victim and refused to pay until the very end. But since I had good evidence of the affair, she had no choice but to agree to the payment. Later, it was discovered that Scarlett's pregnancy was a lie told for money, and they broke up. Tyler, my ex-husband, got down on his knees and pressed me to get back together with him, but of course I refused. He has had difficulty finding new employment and has given up on his dream of becoming a lawyer and is now working as a temp and part-time worker. Scarlett tried to rely on our parents after she broke up with him, but since I had already reported the divorce, our parents, as expected, refused my sister. I, on the other hand, have more opportunities to be assigned to divorce cases by my boss after it became known at work that I defended myself in a divorce settlement. I would like to continue to be there for my clients who are facing various problems, and I will continue to work hard at my job as